You are the hope forever close.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. Somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
It has been said that when in the course of human events, an oppression so revolts its subjects that it becomes necessary to alter or abolish the means of that tyranny. Is it that time when our Bill of Rights is defiled every day? When our adventures abroad threaten our security at home? When the Federal Reserve keeps our free nation enslaved by debt? When the people of the world tremble under the thumb of corporate imperialism? And now, our nation is drifting dangerously from freedom to fascism. So I have to ask, is it time?
Do not harm me, I am your truth. Don't kill me, for I'm your youth. I am your hope, I am your truth. I'm your faith, yes, I'm your youth. Do not harm me, I am your truth. Don't kill me, for I'm your youth. I am your hope, and I am your truth. I am your faith, I am your youth.
My name is Michael Bent. I'm a professor at Bluegrass Community and Technical College. I'm in the Humanities Department and I'm an English professor.
Charles A. Bousher. I do security out of the greenhouse.
I'm a part-time student at BCTC. I'm a 32-year-old college freshman, and I also work full-time. I am a server.
I'm Gary Bachman. I'm a software developer. I'm a working man who pays his taxes, loves his country.
I've been part of the military-industrial complex for some time. I was a rocket scientist during the Korean War.
Oh, wow.
With building naval groundware or designing naval groundware missiles.
My name is Mike Vaughn. I'm currently unemployed.
My name is Sarah Romberg. I'm a clinical social worker for Bluegrass Mental Health Mental Retardation Board.
When people try to typecast us as being one group, they obviously are misrepresenting us because we're a wide, diverse group of people. We have people of every age, we have people of every different background. Economically, we have different people involved. We have lawyers coming up and pointing up in the sky saying, I work way up here in this skyscraper, but I'm here supporting you. But I can't be out here on the street with you. We have people that are disabled that can't come down, but they're, helping us out.
It's not that people just need to buckle up and get a job. It's that the jobs aren't there, or the jobs that are actually up to a reasonable standard aren't there. A statistic that I think isn't brought up nearly enough is that for every one open position right now, there are 4 people looking for employment. So it's easy to just yell from the road, get a job.
We know that the greatest threat to American security is the current corruption of our government.
I am here to make my voice heard and take part in this wonderful global uprising that aims to get the corruption out of the system.
There's some really core flaws in the way our government works and the way corporations are set up. Something needs to be done about it. It's got to the point where ordinary people no longer have a voice, and it's corrupting our democracy.
These shenanigans, I mean, there's no other word for it, have been going on for far too long in our government, in our corporations.
Sick and tired of politicians playing around, messing with me. I'm sick and tired of bending over, assuming a position, getting a little kissing. I'm sick and tired of messing around. I'm sick and tired of laying on the ground. I'm sick and tired. Mama's weeping.
There's been a lot of talk out here, just among the people I talk to in particular, about corporate personhood, about the idea that the corporation can give unlimited contributions to any campaign, about the growth of the Political Action Committee.
How are elections run? What is the influence of money? The difficulties of any politician of trying to run for office. I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars on a local level, and then we talk about on a state level where we start talking about tens of millions of dollars, and then we start talking on a national level where we're talking maybe $500 million for one person to run for president. This is ridiculous. I mean, it's frightening the amount of money that's being spent on campaigns. This must be one of our primary things, and it must be changed.
As Iraq veterans against the war, we swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, but we found out the hard way that the greatest enemies of the Constitution are not to be found in the sands of some far-off land, but rather right here at home.
A lot of people are out here for a lot of different reasons. The one kind of underlying issue that I think we can all agree on is that our government no longer answers to us. It answers through the lobbying and broken electoral system. The corporations and the people at the very top of the financial system that pay for their campaigns.
The idea that corporations are above the law needs fixing.
Stop corporate greed. You know, greed and capitalism is not the end-all be-all thing. If you take that as like the thesis, the stop corporate greed, that it really trickles out to everything.
There's just too many places just in the U.S. alone that don't enforce enough environmental change because big corporations think it's too expensive.
It trickles out to pharmaceutical companies and how healthcare is kind of managed and structured. It trickles out to so much of the world that it's both very simple and very complex at the same time.
All I want to say is that they don't really care about us.
Our tragic love affair with the state has led us to put far too much trust in a government that we thought could improve our lives, but has instead come to rule our lives for us. We have become, as a people, like a frightened, battered, beat-down victim of an abusive relationship. A servile, unquestioning, obedient people will always produce tyrants. We must, as a nation, once again, embrace defiance, rebellion, and resistance.
When people in power are given bailouts, it's sold by the media to the people as this is good for everyone. But when people on the street are given handouts, be it through health care, welfare, it's seen as undeserving people. Why is it, you know, a subsidy is seen as okay for the powerful and the rich, but it's a handout and it's seen as a negative thing for people who are deemed lazy and poor.
You can cut defense spending in almost half and you're pretty much still spending like about as much as any other country. So there's really no excuse as to why we can't fund our education.
You hear people talking about Occupy Wall Street and Occupy movements, that they seem to sense that there's no organized goals, and you were saying that you feel empowered by.
Yeah, that attracted me too.
One of the beautiful things I think about this movement is thus far the Occupy movement, they're not making demands, and that's confusing a lot of people, but it's also allowing more people into the movement, because as soon as you make a demand, you may keep people that don't share that same view from becoming part of the movement.
I don't know enough about the economy or about business models to say what does work or what doesn't work. What I want to come down here for to say is that what we're doing isn't working. And if we all sit around and talk in our little groups about it or don't talk at all about it, we may not know that we all actually agree.
People are bringing things up that, you know, they weren't necessarily aware of before.
If we can get a discussion going with all viewpoints on this issue, then we might come to some understanding of what can be done feasibly.
The unique thing about this movement is that we're talking about things that affect everyone. The 99% isn't just a catchy little slogan. It really is indicative of who it affects. and who is going to benefit from its success. We have to focus on what we have in common and put aside what we may not for the time being. Otherwise, we're not going to have much left to fight over.
In terms of like having no higher social order here, I think the first thing someone might notice is sometimes it is messy. It's not just, you know, clear cut. There's not one, say, white male running the show, and it may not be as efficient at times, you know, and I think in our country, and over time, we've really equated efficiency with what is good and right and just. And I think we also have this idea in Western culture that we can control everything. I think democracy and really including everyone can be messy, but just because it's messy and not efficient doesn't mean it's not working. And I think oftentimes anything worth doing is going to be difficult, you know, if we're doing it well.
Time is now. The threat is clear. The bands of tyranny are tightening around America, and it is our duty to resist. As empowered patriots, let us take stock of our commitment to the ideals upon which this country was founded. America without her freedoms is like a body without a soul. The challenge before the freedom movement is no less than to bring about a revolution of values, inspire a renaissance of American politics, and breathe new life into the tortured body of our nation. We will meet that challenge with courage and love, and as always, we the people will prevail.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Listen to me, people, I got a story to say about the injustices in the USA. Man up at your back.
No politician has ever ended a war. Civil rights were won in this country not by any legislator, but by a movement. I have great hope for America, but it comes not from any election. No, my hope comes from you.
I hear people say, well, 2 months and you haven't really accomplished anything.
You know, it's still very young. It's, you know, we're 2 months into this, you know, the sky's the limit.
I can see where some might look on this and say, well, that's kind of a waste of time. But one, it does raise awareness.
It's the idea more of maybe planting a seed. It doesn't mean that we don't have to accomplish anything or that I'm not here to accomplish something. But just, I think, any type of education, raising awareness, just helping each other.
The peace marches back in the 60s made some difference. This is a totally nonviolent movement, and so I think that's huge.
If you look at past populist movements in this country's history, they took time. The civil rights era went on for years and years before many of its changes were enacted. To criticize the movement for not making enough progress in 2 months is very short-sighted. Just calling it a protest is very undermining. Protest is a very important part of it. When we say occupation, we mean that in the same way that military occupations have enacted change in other countries. So by maintaining a 24/7 presence, we're shifting the tone of conversation.
Big problem within Lexington as well as America in general is the fact that our media is dominated by corporations, and that the information that people are being supplied with is once again, you know, heavily slanted towards one particular view, and the representation of the occupations is a part of that. And what I would want is for people to sit there and say, what are they saying? Let me look into this for myself. And I understand everybody has limited time and abilities, but to, you know, research this for themselves.
I spent a lot of time watching the general strike in Oakland, the raids on the Occupy movement there. What I saw were provocateurs that were instigating violence for mainstream media, for their photo ops. Everything that I saw points to that. Again, sometimes there are bad apples, but that's not what our movement's about. And I think it's important people do not wear masks when you're protesting. If people are wearing masks, get them to take them off. If they don't, identify those people, make sure everybody around knows who they are, because they're nothing but trouble, and they're certainly not part of our movement. The politicians, they're doing everything they can to snuff out this movement. They're scared, and they should be.
If you look at the history of movements in this country, I mean, the civil rights movement especially, there are documented cases where the CIA and what have you would send in people specifically to incite violence and justify a violent response. It is very realistic. It might sound out there at first, but if you do your research, you will find that it is a very valid theory.
I think that deep down, leaders in America, mainstream media, and people in power are probably scared because it is something that is very threatening. But I think that would never be admitted, and the obvious threat, when people in power who don't want to give up their power feel threatened, they're going to make every effort to kind of negatively spin the people that are the whistleblowers that are raising the voices. So I just really see a lot of those stories as really putting down the movement, making people seem stupid, saying that homeless people and sex offenders and mentally ill people are the main thrust of the movement, and just doing anything to make it seem small and pitiful and uneducated.
You read a lot about it, you hear a lot about it, and that's all well and good. You sort of form an opinion, but I don't think you really can get a true idea of what the movement is until you're down there with the people. You listen to them, their stories, who they are, where they come from, and I think you get a real knowledge of value for what the movement is. It's not just cold words on a page or some objective newspaper or a reporter. You actually feel the community, the brotherhood, and definitely the passion that people here have for this subject.
One guy said the other day, he said, "This is the movement I've been waiting my whole life for." I kind of poo-pooed it at first because I'm looking over at this 21-year-old and I'm thinking, what does he know about life and experience? But then I finally put it in proper context or perspective, and it is his whole life for him, and so it's no different than mine. And so this is important, and so that's why he's here, and that's why I'm here.
It's not going to go away until the grievances are addressed.
I would take the money out of the election system, go with public financing of campaigns. I would have the media decentralized, as well as some sort of standard for whatever you want to call news. And I would overturn corporate personhood, because people are people and corporations are institutions.
If we want to really have meaningful change in this country, then we're going to have serious reform across the board of our conception of capitalism, of our ideas for financial regulations, of student loans. There's too much. There's too much to sum up in really any word other, I think, than reform.
We're welcoming to all to come down. Anybody who wants to come talk to us is welcome to come in. People here every day are very sincere in what they're doing. They care very much about the community, locally and at large, our whole country, and that they want to help out. They want to pitch in. And I think that there's some plans going on right now where I think that that's going to be more obvious. And we're not here to cause problems for anybody. We are here to try and make a difference and make things better in the world for everybody.
Well, I would encourage all of them to come down, to meet these people, to share their stories with them, and see just how much in common a lot of us have. We are the 99%. We are all together in this. I think the people, who stand objectively by at home and they sort of label this group that we're activists, I don't think they truly understand that they're a part of the movement too. That right now they deny it, but truly they have to open their eyes and see that we are all together in this.
We are compelled to be here for many different reasons, and there is strength in our diversity. As within Iraq Veterans Against the War and Veterans for Peace, we don't need to be uniform to be unified. Take a look at the thoughtful, passionate people that surround you on this field and throughout this country. Do not leave here today without meeting a new brother or sister in the struggle. Take with you the inspiration to share your passion with someone who does not know they are yet part of our movement. Seek out where you can be most effective in the cause of liberty. Challenge our force-fed culture of unquestioning conformity and compliance, and embrace a world that is not defined by the politics of fear, our obedience-producing schools, or the false prophets of the corporate media. As we have been awakened, we must stir the sleeping masses. As the forces of oppression are diligent, so must we toil. As they are committed, we must surpass them. As they step up their